It was the first Monday of spring in 1996 when Old Man Travis saw her. He was fly fishing in Elk River, like he always did after the thaw, when he noticed something pale caught between two slow-moving branches. At first, he thought it was a deer carcass, then maybe a drowned dog. But then it moved. She wasn't crying. She wasn't calling for help. She just stood knee-deep in the current, soaking wet, staring toward the woods with wide, unblinking eyes. A girl, barefoot, no older than 6, wearing a white cotton nightgown that clung to her small frame like river skin. When Travis called out, she didn't flinch, didn't even turn around, just whispered something he couldn't quite hear. Later, he said it sounded like it wasn't time yet. The sheriff's office had no missing persons reports. No one in the county knew her. No one within 200 miles reported a missing child. No fingerprints, no ID, no leads. She didn't speak for 3 days. Not to the social workers, not to the nurses, not even to the kind-eyed foster couple who eventually took her home, Daniel and Mary Ellen Brecker. The only thing she had on her when they found her was a smooth stone in her left hand. Flat, oval, red-veined. She wouldn't let it go. Even in her sleep, her fingers clutched it tight. They tried asking her what it meant. She stayed silent. So they gave her a name, Jane, River Jane. At first, life with the Breckers seemed peaceful. They lived in a small farmhouse on the edge of Harlan County, a place full of sunflowers and quiet roads. Jane never misbehaved. She never lied, never shouted, never asked for anything. But she drew, endlessly. Her drawings covered the walls of her room. Dozens of sheets taped edge to edge, and in each one, the same 3 things appeared. A crooked house standing alone in a clearing. A massive tree behind it, black and gnarled, its branches heavy with ropes that held nothing. And a woman with no face, arms outstretched as if waiting to be hugged. Sometimes she drew herself in the picture. Sometimes she drew other children, always in grayscale, always walking toward the house. Mary Ellen once asked her, "Who is the lady in your drawings?" Jane looked up, eyes too calm for her age. "She's the one who shows you your name." "What do you mean, sweetheart?" "The name you had before you were born, the one you forgot." That night, Daniel Brecker dreamed of drowning. He woke up gasping, mouth full of river water, sheets soaked through. Outside the window, Jane stood motionless in the yard, looking straight up at the stars, stone in hand, mouth moving, though no sound came out. When he opened the door to call her inside, she had vanished. The next morning, she handed them both a picture, the same house, the same tree. But now, the faceless woman had a face, Mary Ellen's face. And beneath it, written in tiny letters, "She remembers now." It started with a drawing. One morning, Jane handed Daniel a fresh page, still smelling faintly of crayon wax. She pointed to a crooked hill behind a broken fence, the black tree rising tall and leafless, its branches stretching like arms toward the sky. At the base of the tree were 7 small circles. Holes? Stones? Faces? "Where is this?" Daniel asked. Jane blinked. "Behind the Hush Church?" "You mean the Husher Creek Baptist?" "No, the church that stopped speaking. It's quiet now." There was no quiet church on any map, but there was an old ruin deep in the woods behind Husher Creek, where the land curved around like a bowl. Locals called it the Death Chapel. No sermons had been held there in over 60 years. It wasn't haunted, they said, just forgotten. But when Daniel and Mary Ellen followed Jane through the trees that afternoon, she walked straight to it, without hesitation. The chapel was nothing but a stone outline now, vines up to the waist, no roof, no pews, just silence. And behind it, halfway up a slope, was the tree, exactly as she'd drawn it, tall, black, twisted. The bark was cracked like charcoal, but there were no ropes, no bodies, nothing hanging, just stillness. Jane walked to the base and whispered something. Then she pointed. "They're underneath." Mary Ellen crouched and found a patch of disturbed earth, soft, looser than the rest. Daniel dug with his bare hands. 3 inches down, his fingers struck bone. He froze. Mary Ellen pulled him back. "We're leaving." But Jane didn't move. She placed her smooth, red-veined stone at the base of the tree, exactly where she stood in her drawings. Then she whispered again. They were shown. They forgot. The roots remember. The Breckers returned home shaken. They called the sheriff, who sent out a search team. By the time they got there, the tree was still standing. But the soft dirt had hardened, packed solid. No sign of burial, no bones, no stone, and worse, no path. There was no trail, no broken underbrush, no way back to where they'd been. It was a trick of the mind, the deputy said. You followed a kid into the woods. You got turned around. That night, Daniel dreamt of the tree again, only this time he was hanging from it. No rope, no hook, just floating, as if something had chosen him and gravity no longer mattered. He looked over, saw 6 others beside him, mouths open but no sound, eyes hollow, and below them Jane, smiling. He woke up gasping, and in his palm, clenched tight, was the red stone, the one Jane had left at the tree, except now it was warm, and it pulsed. The next morning, Mary Ellen asked Jane what the tree was. She replied softly, "It's where you go when the ground forgets you." "And who forgets us?" Jane's eyes were wide, calm, too old for her face. "Your own name. That's how it starts." A week after the visit to the tree, Jane stopped drawing. Instead, she started building, with sticks, stones, bones from animals she found in the woods. She would gather them into the living room while Mary Ellen was at work and Daniel was in the barn, arranging them into a strange structure, always the same. A small, crooked house with no windows. Just one door and a stairwell going down. "Is this a real place?" Daniel asked her. Jane nodded. It was buried. Where? Under the place where people forget. 2 nights later, Jane disappeared. The Breckers woke to find her bed empty, front door ajar, and muddy footprints trailing through the hallway. They followed the tracks, through the fog, past the river, up a path they didn't know existed, until they reached a clearing. And there it was, the house from her drawings. Not a ruin, not a figment. A real wooden house, sunken halfway into the ground, its windows boarded, its chimney cracked. But real. It should not have been there. There were no records of it, no foundation on the old maps, no sign that it had ever been lived in or torn down. And yet, Jane was already inside. Daniel kicked in the door. The inside smelled of mold and something older, like soil mixed with old paper. The wallpaper was still intact, patterned with ivy and eyes. Every wall bore mirrors, some shattered, some dust-covered. But in every mirror, their reflections appeared off by half a second, like a playback, like someone else pretending to be them. At the center of the house was a stairwell. It descended into darkness, but they could hear something below, shuffling, whispering, a child's voice repeating names. Daniel started down first. Mary Ellen followed. As they descended, the air thickened like breathing in ash. Jane's voice echoed, "You can't remember what you never learned, but the house remembers." At the bottom, a single room, circular, stone walls, no exits. The walls were covered with names, hundreds, carved deep. Some were scratched out, some were circled. And on one section, recently etched, Jane Evelyn Rawls, born 1912, disappeared 1918, returned 1996. Daniel touched the stone stunned. That's not possible. She'd be 84, Mary Ellen whispered. Then they saw her. Jane sat in the middle of the room, cradling her red stone. She looked up, no fear in her eyes. "This is the part where I remember." "Remember what?" Daniel asked. "The lives I had, the ones I borrowed, the ones they took away." Behind her, one of the mirrors shimmered. Inside it, another version of her, dressed in older clothes with eyes clouded white. Suddenly, the mirror cracked. Then another. Then another. Each one began to bleed ink from the glass. And the house groaned. Not like creaking wood, like something waking up. Jane stood and turned to them. "You have to go now. This house doesn't forget, and it's not ready for you." "Jane, that's not my name anymore." "Then what is it?" Jane didn't answer. The red stone in her hand turned black, and the mirrors all went dark. They ran. Up the stairs, through the hallway, out into the cold. But when they looked back, the house was gone, as if it had sunk into the earth behind them, leaving nothing but frost-covered grass and silence. The next morning, Jane was back in her bed, dry, clean, sleeping peacefully. But she had drawn again, one page only, a mirror with Daniel's name written across the top, and underneath, "He's next." Daniel didn't tell Mary Ellen what he saw in the mirror. He didn't mention the face that blinked a moment too late, or the way its smile lingered after he'd turned away. But that night, he found himself writing. Not a journal, not a letter, just names, on napkins, receipts, the wall behind the shed. He wrote the same list over and over again. Jane Evelyn Rawls, Lillian Ray Hatcher, Margaret Ellis Varn, Rebecca Sue Winstone, dozens of names, all girls, all lost. And beside each, a year, Mary Ellen discovered the list and confronted him. "What is this, Daniel?" "I don't know," he whispered. "They're not mine, but I remember writing them." They brought the list to a local historian, Miss Roan Keever, who specialized in Appalachian disappearances. Her face paled as she read. These girls all vanished from this valley, over a century, one every decade or so, most never found, no bodies, just gone. Mary Ellen asked, "Do any of them match Jane?" Roan hesitated. One. She opened a dusty folder from 1918. There it was, a photo, faded but clear. A little girl standing barefoot beside the Elk River, hair wet, white nightgown, eyes wide, just like Jane's. Caption: Jane Evelyn Rawls, missing. Presumed drowned. Roan continued, the Rawls girl was the first. After her, the vanishings became patterned. Every 12 to 14 years, a girl appears in town. Found near the river, no family, no name. And then, the deaths start. Deaths? Daniel asked. Always sudden, always untraceable, like the town is trading something. Trading what? Memory. That night, Mary Ellen dreamed of the house again. Except this time, she wasn't herself. She was a little girl, one of the names on Daniel's list, and Jane was with her, older, smiling. We were all forgotten, she said. But someone has to remember. When Mary Ellen awoke, her hands were black with ink. On the bedroom wall, she had written in perfect cursive, "Your name is how they find you." Daniel began to forget things. At first, small things. Where he left the keys, what day it was, the name of his first dog. Then it got worse. He forgot the way to town, forgot how to read his own handwriting. One morning, he looked at Mary Ellen and said, "I know your face, but I don't know your name." Mary Ellen held him close, trembling. Jane watched from the stairs, her eyes distant. "It's happening faster this time," she said softly. "Why?" Mary Ellen asked. Jane looked down at the red stone in her hand, now cracked in half. "Because this time I stayed too long. I took too much." Mary Ellen asked the question she'd avoided for weeks. "Are you one of them? One of the lost girls?" Jane answered without blinking. "I was the first, and the last. The name isn't mine anymore. I only wear it to come back." "Why come back at all?" Jane tilted her head. "To see who remembers me." That night, Daniel wandered into the woods and didn't return. The next morning, Mary Ellen found a new drawing on the kitchen table. A mirror. Daniel's reflection, fading. And above it, memory claimed, vacancy open. The year was 2025 when I arrived in Breck Hollow. I'd heard whispers of the place, not from any official record, but from a name scrawled in the margins of an old police report. Ask about the girl who came back without her name. The town wasn't on any modern map. I found it on an old topographic survey, buried under the name Harlan Hollow No. 3, as if someone tried to erase it through renaming. When I arrived, the town looked normal. Gas station, church, one diner. But something was wrong. No one could tell me how long they'd lived there. No one remembered moving in. And when I asked about the Brecker family, blank stares. "Ain't heard that name before," the waitress said. "You sure you're in the right town?" I found the Brecker farmhouse myself. It was overgrown now. Vines through the windows, dust on everything. Yet, it didn't feel abandoned. Inside, I found drawings, taped on the walls, hundreds of them. Each one slightly different, but always the same girl. Jane, at the river, at the tree, at the mirror. And in each one, another person beside her, slowly fading from frame to frame. In the attic, I found a mirror. Not cracked, not dirty. Just waiting. I didn't mean to touch it. But the second my fingers brushed the glass, I heard her voice. Not spoken, remembered. "Your name was in here once. You came before. You always come before." The mirror flashed, and suddenly I saw her. She stood in the clearing near the house that shouldn't exist. Same white nightgown. Same eyes, too wide, too calm. Same red-veined stone in her hand. But she wasn't a child anymore. She was every age at once, and I understood. Jane wasn't a girl. Jane was the memory of the house, the part that survived, no matter how many times it was buried. I stumbled backward from the mirror and ran, down the stairs, out into the yard. But the town was gone. No diner, no road, just woods, endless and unfamiliar. And on the wind, her voice again. "If no one remembers you, you can't leave. So stay. Remember me." My phone doesn't work here. I've written this story by hand, again and again, trying to leave a mark, a trail, something someone might find. But the more I write, the less I remember. Yesterday, I forgot my last name. Today, I forgot where I'm from. Tomorrow, I fear I'll forget why I'm afraid. One last thing. There's a mirror on the wall now. I check it every morning. And yesterday, it blinked before I did.